to what the Honourable Andrew Little was saying.
Question number 10, the Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Justice. Does he stand by his statement regarding his Electoral Integrity Amendment Bill, quote, "I am stunned at the number of times professors, legal experts, constitutional experts have actually got their analysis about the bill wrong," close quote. And has he considered the possibility that he has it wrong?
Honourable Andrew Little.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, in response to the first part of the question, yes. In response to the second part of the question, I can assure the member that I have given considered and lengthy consideration to the very issues that he raised and the issues surrounding the bill. I have thought long and hard, and I have come to the conclusion, by an overwhelming margin, that I have been right all along.
Supplementary, Mr Speaker. Has the Minister considered yesterday's strong submission from the Human Rights Commission against the bill, saying it breaches the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and that it will damage New Zealand's reputation in respect of both human rights and the quality of our parliamentary democracy? Or is he seriously saying that the Human Rights Commission is also wrong?
Mr Speaker, I have heard what the Chief Human Rights Commissioner has said. I disagree with him. We have had this legislation in force in this country before, and it did not have the effects described.
Supplementary.
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Does he agree with the statement from the New Zealand Law Society opposing his bill, saying it hinders the constitutional rights of MPs and will have a chilling effect on their free speech? Or is he now arguing that not only are more than 20 constitutional experts, not only the Human Rights Commission, but actually the Law Society representing 12,000 lawyers is also wrong?
Mr Speaker, yes, I declare a conflict of interest that I am an associate member of said Law Society. However, let me answer the question this way, that I have read the Law Society's submission, and in about paragraph 2 or 3 it proceeds on a fundamental failed assumption, which is that the legislation currently being considered by this committee provides for the leader to remove a member of parliament, and it does not do that. As I explained to the House on a previous occasion, there are a number of steps to go through, and the leader's role in the process is simply one of a cipher, because the decision is not the leader's alone.
The Right Honourable Winston Peters.
Could the Minister tell the country how many of these professors, legal experts and constitutional experts raised objections to the identical precursor legislation of 2001?
Mr Speaker, I wasn't a member of the House on that occasion, and although I consider myself a student of previous parliaments, I do not know how many academics took objection to the previous legislation, which worked very successfully in the time that it was in force.
Supplementary. How can the Minister claim that that legislation was...
Sorry, Mr Finlayson, I could tell the member's agitated. I'll ask Dr Smith to start his question again.
How can the Minister claim that the legislation was a success in improving the integrity of Parliament when we had the nonsense of the Leader of the Alliance, Mr Jim Anderton, pretending in this House that he was continued to be the Leader of the Alliance, while outside the Parliament he established the new Progressive Political Party? And isn't the truth that that eroded trust in this institution?
Order. Now, I think the member knows that this Minister has no responsibility for the actions of Mr Anderton a number of years ago.
Point of order, Mr Speaker.
A point of order, the Honourable Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, in the previous answer to the question, the member had asserted that the previous legislation of the same had worked. And my question was, how can he argue that when these were the events that occurred under the previous legislation? There's no question of the Minister having responsibility for Mr Jim Anderton What he does have responsibility for is his answers in which he asserted the previous legislation worked well.
I'll let the Minister answer it. I was probably slack in letting him go on last time.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I think that the very example that that member points out is a very good illustration of the realities of the legislation and, if you like, realpolitik, that political judgments will continue to be made. And just as the ACT Party will be very glad of the previous legislation because it got rid of a recalcitrant member who had no useful contribution to make and who distorted Parliament, on another occasion a set of political judgments were made that did not lead to a member leaving this House.
Question number 11, Dr Deborah Russell.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister of Revenue,